Hello, I'm Peter Underwood. This is News from the Water. Long stretches of canal impassable. As I speak, there are no fewer than 16 closures across the Canal and River Trust canal system, and there have been that number or more for almost the whole summer season, and that's before the scheduled winter stoppages begin. Many of those stoppages are locks which have broken, everything from collapsed floors to broken collars, displaced gates and broken cills. Others are more serious and long-term, like the stoppage at Rishton on the Leeds and Liverpool Canal, which CRT now admits was caused by a failed culvert and tells us will take 6 months to repair. And the most recent breach at Burghfield on the Kennet and Avon, which has seen millions of gallons flowing from the canal into the local river. There's currently no estimate of how long that will take to fix, but it's likely to be months rather than weeks. So 2 major canals are now closed to through traffic, and others, like the Rochdale, suffer chronic problems which mean they're not navigable for weeks at a time due to water loss through poorly maintained locks. Now, there's some mystery about the sheer number and nature of the many stoppages being suffered by canal users this year. Some feel the fact that CRT chose to furlough most of its skilled staff last year has meant necessary repairs have not been done and the problems have been allowed to get worse. Others that we're seeing the result of years of neglect and of routine and preventative maintenance. However, the question which concerns many boaters centres on the Trust's inspection regime. It has long claimed that all key assets, as they call structures like locks, bridges and culverts, are inspected on a regular basis in order to plan repairs and maintenance. Now, if that is the case, why are so many of them failing? Now, the answer may lay with the conversations I've had with some asset inspectors in the past and in recent weeks. They tell me that they do inspect, they do make notes and recommendations on their portable tablets, but they have no say over what gets priority, never mind what work is actually done. As a result, they can report the same fault month after month and nothing is done until it finally breaks, sometimes resulting in a canal being closed for months. Now, if that's true, and I have no reason to disbelieve it, because I've heard something similar from a number of employees over a number of years, then the real question is why senior managers at regional and national level within CRT are not doing their job and taking action on the basis of those vital reports. Todd Brook, the final reckoning. 5 years and tens of millions of pounds may finally see the near disaster at Todbrook Reservoir finally dealt with. Canal and River Trust has now applied to the High Peak Borough Council for planning permission to replace the spillway damaged following torrential rain in the summer of 2019 with a new overflow structure to the north of the dam, which will funnel away excess water when the reservoir is full. The plan for the new structure includes building a new overflow side channel weir, what a wonderful name, a tumble bay, even better, and a spillway channel and stilling basin, which links to the existing bypass channel before flowing into the River Goyt in the town's Memorial Park. The repair project is estimated to cost in the region of 12 to 16 million pounds, with many millions already spent on emergency works, planning and preparation, often using consultants with an international reputation. Works due to start in spring 2022 and is expected to take about 2 years to complete, with a reservoir once again feeding the Peak Forest Canal and reopening to the public in the summer of 2024. Now, Daniel Greenhouse, CRT's Northwest Director, says that restoring Todbrook is vital to ensure the long-term viability of the Peak Forest and Macclesfield canals. Now, the near disaster at Todbrook has also led to a review of all CRT's reservoirs, with expensive work already underway in some places and planned for others. The likely total cost across the country of avoiding another dangerous failure is unknown at present. A double protest launches boaters' fight against latest CRT safety zones. Now, the banks of the River Lee were once again filled with a carnival of protesting boaters last Sunday as the National Bargee Travellers Association revived its campaign against Canal and River Trust's imposition of so-called safety zones on the River Lee, despite having promised to put them on hold. NBTA London held 2 events in Hackney and Broxbourne, featuring live music, drumming and comedy as they recruited more boaters to join the civil disobedience campaign against the new mooring restrictions, which have suddenly been signed in those areas, removing nearly 300 mooring spaces. Now, despite apparently climbing down on the safety zones and agreeing to discuss safety issues in a forum involving all users of the navigation, CRT suddenly decided to go ahead with imposing the no mooring sections of the zones in an action widely seen as a breach of faith. MBTA says the weekend's events were to demonstrate to the CRT that boaters will continue to oppose the introduction of any part of the safety zones without consultation in the navigation forum. It says its campaign to encourage boaters to moor in contravention of the new regulations was widely supported, and it is encouraging all London boaters to sign the pledge on its website to defy the new no mooring restrictions. And CRT will start enforcing those in November, allegedly. NBTA London promises it will fully support any boater who's threatened with enforcement action as the result of defying the new no mooring section rules. Deep in the sewage. Boaters on our rivers have been angrily demanding action from Tory MPs whose constituencies include rivers like the River Nene, after they voted against an amendment demanding that water companies immediately stop discharging sewage directly into rivers without full treatment. Boaters have been encouraged to write to a list of MPs who voted to allow the water companies to continue their practice of dumping raw or partly treated sewage into the waterways. The Johnson government, who whipped the MPs to vote against the amendment, argued that the water companies couldn't afford to take immediate action. Others pointed out that the water company shareholders had already taken no less than £57 billion in profits since privatisation, easily enough to have invested the necessary infrastructure. And the campaign by boaters and others seems to have produced an initial result, with another U-turn from the government, who suddenly decided to accept a watered-down version of the amendment. CRT bids to position canals as climate saviours. Now, as Canal and River Trust casts about for alternative sources of funds, it has now moved beyond its well-being agenda to claim a role in the green revolution, so-called. Commissioning a piece of research to coincide with the UK's COP26 conference this November, it has recycled a whole list of benefits of canals that it claims will help Britain tackle the climate change crisis. The report lists heat transfer technology, which already enables canal water to heat and cool more than 250,000 UK homes and businesses, flood mitigation by providing extra urban drainage, and even electricity generated through the handful of small hydro generators that are in action. Using the network to move water during times of drought also gets a plug, as does bikes on the towpath inevitably, and even freight on larger waterways. The research published by CRT and University of Manchester claims even the presence of canal water in urban areas can also cool Britain's overheating cities during heat waves by up to 1.6 degrees Celsius in a 100-metre corridor along the waterway. Richard Parry makes the claim that, with the right investment of course, the waterways will play an important role in meeting the aspirations of COP26. They can cool cities in summer, he says, heat homes in winter, provide low-carbon energy, transfer water to where it's needed, and take it away from places where it's not, and provide a network to move goods, materials, as well as connecting important wildlife habitat and offering sustainable transport options. He says the canals are ready to be the arteries of the new green industrial revolution. Bad news for moorers. In a slightly ironic event, Canal and River Trust moorers at sites with an electricity supply are being told to expect sharp hikes in the price they pay for electricity as the energy crisis continues to sweep the country. The Trust says it usually has long-term supply contracts at fixed rates, but the existing arrangements expire at the end of October, and it's been unable to secure a new arrangement on reasonable terms. So it's moving to a standard variable tariff from Monday, and moorers can expect to see prices change, almost certainly upwards, a number of times in the months ahead. CRT says it's continuing to attempt to find what it calls a reasonable fixed price deal. Like other mooring owners, CRT has to stick by off-gem rules which say a trust has to sell electricity at the same price it paid for it. But there isn't a cap on what CRT has to pay, unlike domestic customers, so liveaboard boaters may see their power costs substantially more than would be allowed if they lived on land. 16 million for the Monty restoration. Amongst all the tax increases in the budget this week was good news for fans of the Montgomery Canal, with £16 million from the so-called Levelling Up Fund to restore the broken link to Welshpool. The project will restore navigation to a 4.4 mile section from the Wales-England border at Llanymynech to Hartleen. The cash will fund the rebuilding of 2 bridges flattened by past road schemes, a cultural centre in canal-side buildings at Welshpool, and the creation of no fewer than 3 offline nature reserves designed to protect the canal's listing as a site of special scientific interest when boat traffic finally breaks through and numbers grow 5-fold from the current 500 boats a year. The restoration will once again link Welshpool to the National Canal network, but it's unclear what's happening to the remainder of the canal beyond Berriew which goes to Newtown and is currently unnavigable. The leader of Powys County Council, Councillor Rosemary Harris, said,
"The phased restoration and regeneration of the canal will see the waterway become a flagship visitor attraction, providing long-term economic, cultural and recreational benefits to local communities. We will be working with the canal's owners and operators, the Canal and River Trust, with the project being delivered by the Montgomery Canal Partnership."
CRT has also had some more smaller scale government cash from something called the Heritage Stimulus Fund. A £1.4 million cash handout will fund projects at locks 13 and 15 on the Ashton Canal in Greater Manchester, Riders Green locks 1 and 3 in Sandwell, Wigan locks 73 and 80 and Bingley 5 Rise on the Leeds and Liverpool Canal, plus conservation work along the Hertford Union Canal at Salisbury and Bucks and at Marple on the Peak Forest Canal in Stockport. Hunt warned off. After the Avon Vale hunt was reported by several witnesses to have strayed onto the towpath of the Kennet and Avon Canal at Horton, there was a swift response. Richard Parry assured boaters concerned about the risks to children and pets from hounds on the narrow towpaths that CRT didn't tolerate any hunt using its land and that the Trust lawyers were taking action. The Wiltshire Hunt saboteurs heard from Tom Deard, CRT's top legal person. He assured them that CRT doesn't allow hunting with dogs on any of its land, pointing out that not only was it a breach of bylaws, it represented a real danger to towpath users and boaters. He told the saboteurs that he had written to the hunt, demanding assurances that it wouldn't happen again and warning them of legal action if it did. His letter then urged the saboteurs to report any other illegal incursions by the hunt on Trust land. Court challenge forces council rethink. Boaters are now able to return to the banks of the River Avon in Salford this winter ahead of a rethink of a mooring ban imposed by the local council in the face of advice from its own experts. Following a legal challenge, Bath and North East Somerset Council will now consult with all parties before it decides whether to remove the 14-day moorings at Mead Lane. Boaters know the site is a lifeline, but some local residents have accused them of damaging the riverbank, a claim debunked by the council's consultants, who instead agreed it was the best site in the area for safe mooring. Senior councils, perhaps predictably, voted to back the local residents, but last month a judge ordered them to review that decision. Boater Rebecca Saal, who brought the judicial review, said,
"The council thought it was easier to listen to the rich residents than the less well-off, less important travellers. They've been told they can't mess with the little people, they can't just brush us under the carpet."
Ms Saal said she was confident that the consultation would show that Mead Lane is the safest and best on the river to moor. And the council claims the Canal and River Trust has issued a significant number of continuous cruising licences despite the lack of facilities, increasing pressure on the Kennet and Avon Canal and the River Avon. Over the past 8 months, it's appointed a river warden, apparently jointly with Canal and River Trust, removed the 48-hour leisure moorings and put in place temporary signage. Once again, Boaters come second. Development plans opposite Anderton Boat Lift. Two major chemical companies, Tata Chemicals and Innovin Enterprises, which has Monaco-based British billionaire James Ratcliffe as a director, have teamed up with the developers Gladman Developments in a bid to build 1,500 homes on the Winnington Works site opposite the Anderton Boat Lift. If they get the go-ahead for the 1,500 new homes, employment, public open space and a primary school in what the developers call a vibrant residential-led mixed-use neighbourhood, it will bring a substantial windfall for the two chemical firms and help balance their books. It will also completely change the outlook from the Anderton Lift site, which has always looked out onto the jumble of rusting industrial buildings across the river. The scheme's on a brownfield site which has been identified for regeneration in the local plan, and the developers are asking local people for their thoughts before submitting their first outlying planning application. But local councillors already say they're astonished that the consultation doesn't include transport infrastructure improvements such as a new bridge. The developers will only say they have engaged with the council with respect to the bridge crossing and will be assessing the implications of development traffic at this location. Non-committal at best. That's it from us this week. Talk to you again soon. Bye.
We need video and photos of all aspects of the waterways. Email files to peterunderwood2@gmail.com with your name and a brief description of it and where and when it was shot.